Don't start the week until you've finished it on paper. That's the principle. That's the foundation. And yet, most people do the exact opposite. They wake up on Monday morning, drag themselves out of bed, grab a cup of coffee, and dive into the chaos of emails, phone calls, messages, obligations, all without a plan. They react instead of act. They survive instead of thrive. They drift instead of direct. And by the time Friday rolls around, they wonder why they didn't accomplish more. Now, let me tell you something I learned early on. The week will take control of you unless you take control of it first. You don't just stumble into productivity. You don't just accidentally have a great week. It starts with intention. It starts with a plan. It starts with vision. So, how do you develop this vision? How do you start the week with clarity and direction instead of confusion and distraction? Let's break it down. 1, see the whole picture before you start. Imagine you're a builder. You've got bricks, cement, wood, nails, and tools. You show up to the construction site on Monday morning and you just start hammering. No blueprint, no architectural plan, no idea what you're building. You just start putting things together, hoping something good comes out of it. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly how most people start their week. They wake up, dive into their tasks, answer emails, go to meetings, and run around without any real structure. They're building without a blueprint. They're working without a vision. The first step to beginning your week right is to see the whole picture before you start. Take a moment before Monday arrives to sit down and visualize the week ahead. Ask yourself, what do I need to accomplish this week? What are the most important tasks that will move me forward? What challenges am I likely to face and how will I handle them? What areas of my life, work, health, relationships, need attention? If you can't answer these questions, you're already setting yourself up for a scattered, unfocused, unproductive week. But when you take the time to plan, everything changes. You move with confidence. You act with purpose. You don't waste time on things that don't matter. 2, write it down. Don't just think about it. Now, here's where most people go wrong. They have ideas. They have goals. They have thoughts about what they want to accomplish. But they keep it all in their head. Big mistake. Jim Rohn always said, writing crystallizes thought and thought motivates action. There's something powerful about putting your plan on paper. It brings clarity. It makes it real. It turns a vague intention into a concrete commitment. So don't just think about your week. Write it down. List out your top priorities. Schedule your key activities. Block out time for deep work. Map out your most productive hours and protect them. A well-written plan keeps you from getting lost in the noise. When distractions come, and they will, you'll have something to anchor yourself. 3, set the right priorities. Now, having a plan is one thing, but having the right plan, that's another level. See, a lot of people make long to-do lists. They write down 20, 30, 40 tasks they want to complete, and at the end of the week, they're frustrated because they barely finished half. The problem? They focused on being busy instead of being effective. A productive week isn't about doing more things. It's about doing the right things. It's about focusing on the high-value tasks that actually move the needle. So when you sit down to plan your week, don't just write a long to-do list. Instead, ask yourself, what 3 to 5 things would make the biggest impact this week? What are the non-negotiables that absolutely must get done? What tasks can I delegate, automate, or eliminate? Remember, not everything deserves your time. Not everything is urgent, but some things are essential. Identify them, prioritize them, put them first. 4, build in flexibility. Now, let's be real. No matter how well you plan, things will go off track. Unexpected problems will arise. Last-minute requests will come in. Life will happen. This is why you can't schedule every minute of your week like a robot. You need margin. You need breathing room. You need flexibility. When planning your week, leave some open space in your schedule. Give yourself the ability to adjust. If something urgent comes up, you'll have the capacity to handle it without everything falling apart. And if nothing unexpected happens, You'll have extra time to work on long-term goals, sharpen your skills, or just recharge. A good plan is structured but not rigid. It's intentional but not overwhelming. 5. Align your week with your bigger goals. Here's something most people never think about. Every week is a building block. It's a piece of the bigger puzzle. Your career, your health, your relationships, none of these improve overnight. They improve week by week, choice by choice, action by action. So, when planning your week, step back and ask, am I working on things that align with my long-term goals? Am I making progress in the areas that truly matter? Is my schedule filled with activities that contribute to my growth? Because if your week is filled with meaningless meetings, busy work, and distractions, guess what? That's not just a bad week, it's a bad life in the making. But if you're intentional, if you set a clear vision, if you make every week count, you'll wake up one day and realize you're exactly where you wanted to be. Every week starts the same way for everybody. Monday morning. The difference between a great week and a wasted one isn't in the wind that blows, the circumstances that arise, or the unexpected events that pop up. The difference is in how you set the standard for yourself right from the start. See, most people let Monday happen to them. They roll out of bed, groggy, sluggish, checking their phones before they even sit up straight. They hit snooze, and by the time they finally get moving, they're already behind. They're rushing, scrambling, already reacting instead of leading. And then they wonder why their week feels chaotic, why they don't get anything meaningful done, why they feel like they're constantly playing catch up. But the high achievers, the ones who accomplish more in a week than most do in a month, they operate differently. They set the tone early. They start with momentum. They don't wait for the week to dictate their pace. They establish the pace themselves. Because here's the truth. How you begin determines how you continue. If you start slow, scattered, and unprepared, chances are that's how your week will go. But if you start strong, disciplined, and focused, you create the conditions for a productive, fulfilling, and successful week. So, how do you set the standard early? How do you make sure Monday and every week begins with the right energy, mindset, and action? Let's break it down. 1, win the first hour, win the day. The first hour of your Monday morning is sacred. It's the launch pad for the rest of your day and your week. If you wake up and immediately check emails, scroll social media, or dive into other people's agendas, you've already lost control. You've put yourself in reaction mode instead of creation mode. But if you take control of that first hour, so what should you do in that first hour? Here's a simple but powerful structure. Wake up with intention, no snoozing, no dragging yourself out of bed half-heartedly. Get up like someone who has something important to do, because you do. Move your body, exercise, stretch, or take a short walk. Get the blood flowing. Physical movement isn't just for your health. It primes your mind for focus and energy. Feed your mind. Read something insightful. Listen to something that inspires you. Fill your brain with something positive before the world tries to fill it with negativity. Review your plan. Look at your priorities for the day and the week. Don't just let things happen. Be proactive about what needs to get done. If you can win the first hour, you'll set a powerful tone for the rest of the day. If you win Monday morning, you'll set a standard for the rest of the week. 2, show up like it's Friday, not Monday. You ever notice how people act on Fridays? There's energy, there's enthusiasm, there's a sense of urgency to wrap things up, finish tasks, and close the week strong. But Monday is sluggish. Monday is slow. Monday is excuses. Most people ease into the week like they have all the time in the world. They delay the hard work, push important decisions till later, and convince themselves they need a warm-up period. But that's just a mindset problem. It's a habit of low standards. Here's the shift. Show up on Monday like it's already Friday. Come in with energy. Act like you have deadlines. Work with focus. Start strong. Why? Because when you set the pace early, the rest of the week follows suit. If you work with urgency, if you bring enthusiasm and focus on Monday, you create momentum, and momentum is everything. It's a lot easier to stay productive when you start productive. So don't give yourself permission to be sluggish on Monday. Treat it like it's the most important day of the week, because it is. 3, establish the standard, not the exception. You ever notice how some people always seem to be on top of their game? They consistently perform at a high level. They're reliable, they're disciplined, they get things done. That's not an accident, it's a standard. See, a lot of people only work hard when they feel like it, when motivation is high, when deadlines are pressing, when someone is watching. But that's not a standard, that's an exception. That's an inconsistent way to operate. People with high standards don't need external pressure to perform. They don't wait for motivation. They don't need someone checking in on them. They hold themselves accountable. And the best way to establish that standard? Do it early. If you start Monday with discipline, focus, and commitment, you send a message to yourself, this is how I operate. This is the level I perform at. This is who I am. And here's the best part. 4, set boundaries before the week sets them for you. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with productivity isn't because they lack skill or effort, it's because they lack control over their time. They let other people's demands, last-minute meetings, and unexpected distractions dictate their schedule. They start the week with good intentions, but by Tuesday they're completely off track because they never set clear boundaries. If you want to set the standard early, you have to guard your time and energy. Here's how. Set non-negotiable work hours. Don't let meetings, calls, or other people's emergencies take over your most productive hours. Say no more often. Not everything deserves your attention. If it doesn't align with your top priorities, don't let it steal your time. Turn off distractions. Silence notifications. Block out time for deep work. Don't start your week by drowning in emails and social media. If you don't set boundaries, the week will do it for you, and you won't like the result. 5, commit to a high standard, even when no one's watching. At the end of the day, setting the standard early isn't about what others expect from you. It's about what you expect from yourself. It's easy to slack off when nobody's watching. It's easy to justify taking it easy on Monday. It's easy to lower the standard when there's no immediate consequence. But here's the truth. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you start the week with low energy, low effort, and low discipline, that mindset carries over into everything else you do. But if you start the week with excellence, with commitment, most people start their week by filling up their calendar. Meetings, tasks, deadlines, appointments. They organize their schedule down to the minute, making sure everything is accounted for. And yet, by the time Friday comes, they feel exhausted, overwhelmed, and, worst of all, stuck. Why? Because they spent the entire week. See, most people are great at planning their time, but they never think about planning their growth. They pack their schedules with activities, but forget to feed their mind. They show up to every meeting, but never show up for themselves. They're busy, but they're not getting better. And here's the reality. If you don't grow, nothing else does either. Your income doesn't grow beyond your mindset. Your career doesn't grow beyond your skills. Your relationships don't grow beyond your emotional intelligence. If all you do is manage tasks, you stay the same person week after week, month after month, year after year. But the people who keep improving, the ones who keep advancing in life, have a different approach. They don't just fill their schedule with work. They fill their mind with ideas, wisdom, and insight that make them more valuable, more capable, more effective. Because at the end of the day, your mind is your greatest asset. Not your schedule, not your job title, not even your network. If you take care of your mind, everything else takes care of itself. So, how do you feed your mind every week? How do you make sure you're growing, not just grinding? Let's break it down. 1, read more, react less. The average person wakes up and immediately starts reacting to the world. They check their phone, scroll through the news, open their emails, and before they even brush their teeth, their mind is already cluttered with negativity, distractions, and other people's priorities. But successful people, they start their day feeding their mind, not feeding on noise. And one of the best ways to do this? Reading. Reading is like fuel for your brain. It gives you new perspectives, new strategies, new ideas. It introduces you to people who have already solved the problems you're facing. It sharpens your thinking, expands your vocabulary, and makes you more articulate and persuasive. Now, some people say, I don't have time to read. But here's the truth. If you have time to scroll social media, watch Netflix, or check your email 20 times a day, you have time to read. So here's a challenge. Read at least 10 pages every morning. 10 pages may not seem like much, but over a year, that's 3,650 pages. That's about 15 to 20 books. That's more knowledge than most people absorb in a decade. And if you're reading the right books, books on personal growth, leadership, business, psychology, you'll start making better decisions, thinking bigger, and solving problems faster. The goal isn't just to read for entertainment, it's to read for transformation. 2, surround yourself with smarter people. You've probably heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's true. If you spend time with people who complain all day, guess what? You'll start complaining more. If you surround yourself with people who waste time, you'll start wasting time. If you hang around people who have no ambition, no vision, no drive, soon enough, you'll find yourself coasting through life too. But if you're around people who think big, push themselves, set high standards, and constantly improve, that mindset rubs off on you. So ask yourself, who am I learning from every week? Are the people around me pushing me to be better or pulling me down? Am I having conversations that challenge my thinking and expand my perspective? If you're not surrounded by people who inspire you, find new voices, listen to great thinkers, read biographies of successful people, join mastermind groups, take courses, attend seminars, because the more you expose yourself to higher level thinking, the more your own thinking improves. 3, invest in learning, not just earning. Most people work hard to make a living, but very few people work hard to make a life. They focus on getting better at their job, hitting their targets, increasing their paycheck. But they never think about becoming more valuable as a person. See, there's a reason why some people can lose everything and rebuild even bigger than before. It's because their real wealth isn't in their bank account. It's in their mindset, their skills, their ability to adapt. If you want long-term success, invest in yourself before anything else. Take courses that teach you high bear skills. Learn how to communicate better, because your ability to persuade, sell, and connect with people determines your opportunities. Develop your emotional intelligence, because success isn't just about talent. It's about how well you manage yourself and deal with others. Learn from mentors, because the right advice can save you years of mistakes. You are your greatest asset, and the more valuable you become, the more opportunities will come to you. 4, train your mind like an athlete trains their body. Think about professional athletes. They don't just show up to the game and hope for the best. They train every single day. They push their limits. They work on their weaknesses. Now, here's the question. If an athlete trains their body every day, why aren't you training your mind the same way? Mental fitness is just as important as physical fitness. If you don't challenge your mind, it gets lazy. If you don't push yourself to think critically, solve problems, or learn new things, your brain becomes weak, and weak minds don't create strong lives. So make it a habit to train your brain every day. Learn something new before breakfast. Write down your thoughts to sharpen your thinking. Engage in deep work that forces you to stretch your abilities. Challenge yourself with problems instead of avoiding them, because the more you train your mind, the sharper, faster, and stronger you become. 5, be selective about what you consume. Just like junk food destroys your body, junk information destroys your mind. The average person spends 7 hours a day consuming digital content, most of it useless. Gossip, outrage, clickbait, mindless scrolling. It's like eating fast food every single day and wondering why you feel sluggish and unmotivated. But if you start feeding your brain with quality information, books, podcasts, educational videos, deep conversations, you start thinking differently. You start making better decisions. You stop wasting time on distractions and start focusing on what truly matters. So here's this simple rule. Be as careful with what you put in your mind as you are with what you put in your body. If you wouldn't eat junk food all day, don't feed your brain junk either. Choose information that makes you better, not just entertained. Because at the end of the day, your mind is either growing or decaying, and if you don't feed it, you fall behind. One of the biggest mistakes people make is collecting knowledge without ever turning that knowledge into action. People go to seminars, read books, take copious notes, and highlight paragraphs like they're preparing for a final exam. They write down every idea, every strategy, and every concept, but they forget the most important part of the equation: action. It's easy to feel productive when you're learning. The more you know, the more you think you're doing. But here's the truth. Knowledge is only potential power. It only becomes power when it's applied. Taking action isn't always easy. In fact, sometimes it's the hardest thing to do. You might feel overwhelmed, unsure, or intimidated by the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But you can't wait for the perfect moment. You can't wait for the conditions to be right. You can't wait until you feel ready. The secret is to take action immediately, not tomorrow, not next week, but now. Let's break down how you can turn your notes into results, how you can move from passive learning to active doing, and why action is the key to transforming your ideas into reality. 1. Action trumps knowledge every time. Let's face it, everyone has ideas. Everyone has goals. Everyone knows what they need to do to succeed. But very few people actually do it. You can spend years attending conferences, reading books, or listening to podcasts, but none of that matters if you don't take decisive action. For example, let's say you attend a seminar on personal productivity. You take diligent notes, highlight key strategies, and feel fired up afterward. But then you go home, put your notes on a shelf, and never revisit them. What good did that seminar do you? None. On the other hand, someone who reads one book, writes down just a few key principles, and applies them immediately. You see, most of us are paralyzed by the idea of perfection. We think we need to know everything before we take a step. But the truth is, action creates clarity. When you start moving, you'll figure things out along the way. It's the action that leads to results, not the endless accumulation of information. 2. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. One of the most common reasons people don't take action is because they're waiting for the perfect moment. They think they need more time, more money, more experience, or more resources to take that first step. Here's the reality: there's never a perfect time to act. If you wait for the stars to align, you'll be waiting forever. Perfect conditions are an illusion. The only moment that matters is now. Think about it. How many people have started businesses, launched projects, or made bold moves with fewer resources or experience than they wished they had? A lot. And you know what? They figured it out as they went. They didn't wait for the perfect conditions. They created them through action. The secret is to start before you're ready. Take small steps, and as you take those steps, you'll learn, grow, and gain momentum. The act of moving forward will create its own momentum and push you to new heights. But that momentum only comes when you act. 3. Break down your goals into actionable steps. It's easy to get caught up in big ideas and lofty goals, but here's the thing. Big goals are nothing more than a series of small actions. The challenge with goal setting is that it often feels like a mountain that's too steep to climb. People look at their dreams, whether it's writing a book, starting a business, or getting in shape, and they feel overwhelmed. The gap between their current reality and their desired outcome feels too wide to bridge. But the key to taking action is to break down that mountain into manageable steps. Let's say your goal is to run a marathon. That's a huge task, and it can feel intimidating. But if you break it down into smaller pieces, like running 3 times a week for 30 minutes, then gradually increasing your distance, you're no longer looking at a marathon, you're looking at a series of runs. And once you tackle each of those small runs, you'll build the fitness and mental toughness to take on the marathon. The point is, don't let big goals paralyze you. Take that massive goal and divide it into manageable, actionable steps, and then commit to taking one step at a time. 4. Use imperfect action to build momentum. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that our actions must be perfect from the start. We wait for everything to be just right. Our business plan, our website, our pitch, our strategy. But this perfectionism only keeps us stuck. The key is to take imperfect action. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to have all the answers. But you do have to start moving. The good news is action builds momentum. Once you take that first step, you'll start gaining confidence. The more you act, the more you learn, and the more opportunities will open up to you. You'll adjust as you go, refine your approach, and improve with every move. The act of taking action, even when it's imperfect, forces you to learn quickly and adapt. And that's how success happens, not through perfection, but through persistence. 5. Don't wait for motivation, create it. Another common misconception is that you need to feel motivated before you can take action. We wait for inspiration to strike, for the stars to align, for the perfect mood to do the work. But that's not how motivation works. Motivation doesn't come first, action does. You don't need motivation to take the first step. You need to take the first step to create motivation. When you start moving, even if it's a small step, momentum builds. And when momentum builds, motivation follows. But if you wait for motivation to show up before you act, you'll spend your entire life waiting. 6. Learn from your mistakes, but keep moving forward. One of the reasons people avoid action is the fear of failure. They're afraid they'll mess up, make a mistake, or fall short. But the truth is, failure is part of the process. Taking action means you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. In fact, those mistakes are valuable lessons. They teach you what works and what doesn't. They refine your approach, and they ultimately lead to success. What matters is not how many mistakes you make, but how quickly you bounce back. The faster you learn from your failures and adjust your approach, the closer you get to success. 7. Commit to consistent action. It's not enough to take one bold step and then sit back and relax. Success doesn't happen with a single act of courage. It happens with consistent, daily action. If you want to make progress in any area of your life, you need to commit to taking consistent action. Consistency is what turns small efforts into massive results. It's the daily grind that leads to breakthroughs. And that consistency begins with the decision to act.